This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
What makes someone undateable? Is it the color of her nail polish, the way she wears her hair, her tattoos, or the sound of her voice? Maybe it's the limp way he shakes your hand, his bald spot, or his awful taste in clothing. Most of us screen potential dates using preconceived standards, so-called deal breakers, but is that right to do? Joining us back on the program right now is relationship coach Frank Kermit to talk about the so-called undateables. He joins us via Skype from here in Montreal. Hi, Frank.
How are you doing, Peter?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks for being on the program with us once again.
Always a pleasure to do this.
So I guess besides that long-winded intro I had, the idea, the simple question is, do we sometimes set the bar too high?
I would say that everybody is dateable and everybody is equally undateable, depending who you ask.
Okay, so now I'm asking you.
All right. It really depends on what a person really considers a priority. And part of what I do as a coach is that when I'm sitting down with someone who says, I can't find anyone, we look at what that person's criteria is. If the criteria is unreasonable, that's different from just being very picky. If the person's criteria is completely unreasonable, usually it's a sign that they don't really want to be in a relationship, that they would rather be on their own. They have certain fears of intimacy. Maybe they have deep-rooted fears of abandonment. Maybe they just had such bad experiences that they created this list of criteria so they would never get hurt again, and now they are undateable because their criteria is simply unreasonable.
Now, those people in that category you just described, are they aware of it, or is this a subconscious thing that they do? In other words, are they actively looking to get someone, but they've put up these subconscious barriers to themselves?
They're not always consciously aware. However, when I bring it up to their attention, usually it reveals an attitude of, well, I'd rather be alone than to go through what I went through before. And that is the primary attitude that's making them undateable. They're just taking a very negative approach to dating. So no, they're not always aware that they're being unreasonable. They're just trying not to get hurt again.
And I thought of this topic because last week on the Stuph File program, I had a Stuph File news story that dealt with a couple who were both in jail for killing their respective spouses. And they got married in jail. Now, they won't have a chance to consummate the marriage for another 14 years because that's when the male's sentence is out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that story, I remembered, and I tagged the story by saying, you do realize that the two Menendez brothers between them have had 3 marriages since they've been in jail. And I'm sure there are people out there saying to themselves, why can't I find someone? These people do.
Well, the first answer I'm going to give is the people who did end up getting into relationships, number one, they probably made being in a relationship a priority. And number two, maybe they weren't as strict with their criteria as the average person now tends to be. So I'll just give you just a quick example, okay? Just something that we can use for the purposes of discussion. Sometimes a person gets the opportunity for a university education. Once they have that university education, they may decide that they only want to date someone who also has a university education. Not for any particular reason other than, well, I've got a university education, so my partner has to have at least the equivalent to me or maybe above. Having a university education is a great thing, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what kind of life partner that person is going to be. It doesn't tell you what kind of a co-parent that person is going to be. Is it really necessary for you to have that as a criteria? And if it is, it has to be a better reason than just because I got it and I'm looking for the same. When people get into that kind of thinking, where I have to be with somebody who has at least what I have just because, that's when they start down a path of being unreasonable.
So I would assume also that another point is, quite frankly, in this day and age, social media. There was there was a time when you had to get to know someone, but now you can literally Google their life, and before you get to understand why he or she might have the flaws you see about them online, you have no idea, no understanding about these so-called flaws. You're just seeing it all there in black and white or in pixels, and it rules out people whom you may find very attractive and interesting if you got to know them.
I think that when people go on other people's social media and then make a decision not to pursue dating them, that to me is usually an excuse. They're looking for a reason not to continue dating someone, or sometimes, now this is what I've seen in coaching, well, I was trying to decide between 2 or 3 people to date, so they were looking for reasons to eliminate someone, which again is not necessarily a valid reason. So they go to somebody's social media page and say, well, you know what, I really didn't like that person liked this post. I mean, really? You're not taking the time to figure out if this person is compatible with you? The bottom line is most people right now really don't have a life plan. They don't know what they want. And I know I'm being very general here, but when I ask a person who's single, who can't meet anybody, comes to me and says, well, I'm struggling to find someone, and I ask them questions like, what type of lifestyle do you want day to day? What are you offering as a partner? Do you have any plans for the future in terms of, do you even want to have a family one day? Or do you just want to have a child-free existence? Either way is fine. I'm not going to judge somebody for their choices. But most people come to me and they have no concept of having that life plan, not realizing that that is what you find out if someone is compatible or not. Are they on par with your life plan? Do they want the same things you want? If you have that conversation and you take the time to become self-aware, you're not going to be deterred by what somebody says on social media just because you may like it in the moment or not. What you need to do is find out if they are potential partners for you in all the things that are truly important to you. So if I can give just one quick example here.
Sure.
I'm coaching a single parent, and I'll say, okay, you want to get back into dating? What are you looking for? The first things that they start to list are all the things that they hated about their ex, saying, I don't want somebody who exhibits these things. That's when I turn it around on them and I say, look, you have a kid? Yeah. You're a single parent? Yeah. All right, tell me about the type of qualities you're looking for in a co-parent for your kid. Now they're starting to think about the qualities they are looking for. They're starting to understand that, whoa, slow down. It's not about what turns you on. It's about who's going to be a better life partner for you. Once you know what you're looking for, you're more eager to actually take the time to get to know people who prove to be good potentials. Anybody who uses, well, I saw their social media and they're not really looking for anything serious. They're just looking for something to pass the time.
Okay, but flipping the other side of that coin of what you said just a few moments ago about having a life plan and what you want, there's also a point where just because you have a plan and you know exactly what you want out of life, that's not necessarily something to spring up on the first date, I'm guessing.
No, the opposite. If you know what it is you want and you really do have a clear idea as to the type of future you're looking at, there are conversation topics based on that life plan that you can and maybe should share on a first date. At least you'll find out if the person is long-term partner potential, or if you see that there's absolutely no way that you'll ever have a future together, you understand that the most you can have with the person is a short-term involvement. And if you're both okay with that and you're both consenting to that, enjoy your time, have your fun, and just be careful not to get attached.
But if you come across somebody on a first date who says, you know, I want to have 3 children and I want to have a house with a picket fence and they're giving all this information, doesn't that come off as somewhat desperate on the first date when you hear that?
If someone looks at that and says, wow, you're desperate, no, that person who's saying, wow, you're desperate, that's a person who has some level of fear of intimacy, because these are real life issues. If someone says, look, I really am looking to have a family and the white picket fence and I would like to be married, they're doing you a favor. They're letting you know what it is they're aiming for. You're either on board because you want the same things, or you're not on board. If you're not on board, thanks very much. I'm going to let you know now. I'm really not looking to settle down with anybody. Not with you in particular. I'm just not looking to settle down with anybody. Great. You've just eliminated the possibility of something being long-term. Well, do you want a short-term involvement? Are you still interested in seeing the person casually once a month, twice a month, while both of you are still free to pursue other relationships that could become more serious? That's great. Everybody at least knows where they stand, and that is the most ethical thing you can do. The unethical thing to do is to date somebody for 6 months and then say, oh, by the way, I was already thinking that since we've been dating for 6 months, this is going to work out and we should be together and we should get married and we should have kids. And the other person says, well, we've just been dating for 6 months. I have no interest in that. That's unethical.
Yeah, but in 6 months you should know that. I'm not saying you just because I say you don't do something on the first date, I would assume in 3 or 4 dates, never mind 6 months. And when I say dates, I'm talking about just casual dating. When you get to the point where you're boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever grouping you're in, those serious discussions have to come up, obviously. I'm just saying in the first date, or do you lay all the cards out?
I love what you're saying. I really love what you're saying. And that's the way it should be. And I agree with you 100%. That's the way it should be. But we're not talking about ideals. We're talking about human beings who have repeating behavior patterns. And if somebody is such a people pleaser that they're too afraid for being called desperate, for being called out, or being shamed for expressing what they want, they're not going to bring it up on a first date. Chances are they're not going to bring it up on the 6th or the 7th or even the 10th date, because they're afraid of that loss. They're afraid of that conflict. They're afraid of being abandoned, saying, well, if I'm going to express that, the person might run away. Your best bet, and I don't see any problem bringing this up on a first date, that if you have an intent and say, look, I'm really looking for something serious, I'm looking for something that within the next 5 years, I want to be married and have a child. Okay, let's say that's the person's plan. In 5 years, I want to be married and have a child. At least you're letting the other person know, this is my intent, this is my hope, and they have a choice. They can either say, I'm looking for something similar, let's continue to get to know each other, or they can say, I'm not looking for that at all.
And we've got to end it off there because you've run out of time, but it's always words of wisdom from you, Frank. People can find out more information by going to your website, which is FrankTalks.com, correct?
That's correct, FrankTalks.com.
Thank you very much for being on the program with us once again.
All the best.
Relationship coach Frank Kermit. You can check out his website at franktalks.com to find out more about his upcoming events and also some of his ebooks that are available. And you can go to my website at thestuffile.com, go to the What's On page for the show, which is show number 0401, and you'll find the link to his site.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.